Now, if you follow the news, particularly between Thursday of last week and up through that entire weekend, there's a pretty good chance that you must have seen here on our television the news story about the change in leadership at Base University in Abuja. And of course, newspapers were also, the story was replicated across several major newspaper platforms just to establish the fact that there's now change of guard, as they say, at the Base University here in Abuja. We've seen talking points now, sort of emerging from that development as of today. For example, there are now questions about what exactly will the new leadership under the new Vice Chancellor, the Registrar, and a few other key officers do differently, going forward for a university that has actually raised its game in terms of tertiary education innovation. This morning, incidentally, we're joined by the newly appointed registrar, whose appointment, by the way, is effective yesterday. Talking about one man who has been a regular in our programs here, shedding light on many of national issues, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, now the registrar of Base University. Prof, first of all, it's not out of place to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Like they say, you have cut your teeth in journalism, communication, done a lot of work in consultancy, and now you have established yourself as a pivotal academic, not just in Nigeria, but Africa. Time for us to read your citation this morning on the program. But I want us to look at what has changed. This looks like a learning curve. Some people will say, university administration at this level.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think all glory goes to God, and secondly, it's also important to give complete credits, to the founder, proprietor of the university, distinguished Senator Dati Baba Ahmed, who thought me worthy of the appointment, and of course, under the leadership of a very experienced administrator, a career educationist, and of course, a scholar par excellence, Professor Jamila Ashwara. So the charge that the vision of the university, distinguished Dati Ahmed, is giving us, is to position the university into the next level. In the last 14 years, the university has been at the cutting edge of innovation, IT innovation, pioneering tertiary education, like you already alluded to in your introduction, not just in the FCT, but beyond, and becoming a very competitive university within the Nigeria and even the Africa global ecosystem. What this means is that there's a complete recognition of the importance of education, as a stage for the fertilization of the mind, the growing of confidence, enhancement, of skills, and of course the systematic processing of individuals, towards becoming useful, not just for the self, but for the greater system that they find themselves, true impact, true effect, true productivity and efficiency. Education is key, and the university system is at the center of this education. And of course, Base University is positioning itself as a key player within this matrix. It's a responsibility that the founder, has given to himself. He did it maybe at about the age of 40, and has been consistent at it. Now the university, masterfully, because of hard work from past leaders, under his able leadership, has grown, but we need a lot more growth, which is what we are set, is a challenge we are set to take on, with the help of God.
Incidentally, you are also the immediate past Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies at the Base University. You have made an impact there, no doubt about it. But how do you intend to use that, leverage it as a basis to further expand your work, your role now as the registrar?
Well, it's also an indication of the kind of managerial acumen that the owner has, without necessarily flattering him. I joined the university as a regular lecturer. From there I became HOD, and from there I became deputy dean, then dean of the School of Postgraduate Studies, and now massively a registrar. You can see this growth over a period of about 12 years. So apart from the grace of God, This has also come from the creation of a conducive environment, from the instrument of the ownership, to the creation of a learning system that is not just about impacting knowledge, but about growing those who also impact the knowledge. So there are different levels of it. You have students that you are developing. You also have lecturers that you are developing, because as somebody at the heart of impacting knowledge, if you are not developing, you cannot impact knowledge effectively. Considering the frenetic changes that we are witnessing in the world of knowledge. And this development shouldn't just be at the level of intellection, or if you want to put it in a primitive form, textbook knowledge. You also have to be able to exemplify it in your characteristics and, of course, in your displays, in your adventures in the town. Because education is not supposed to be an end in itself, but a means to an end. And, of course, by the time you acquire it within the university ecosystem, there's supposed to be some direct impact on the society at large. And the society at large also begins from the university system, where other things happen apart from learning. There are other activities transpiring in the university that happens apart from learning. This also needs levels of perfection, right? And of course, Base is blessed with a pack of professionals with quality experience. Imagine Professor Shuara now. He has been at the leadership of the federal education system those days. From there to scholarship, both in the Bayero University, Kano, United States of America, and of course he's been permanent secretary in 5 different ministries over about 5 or 6 years, including the Ministry of Education. And she retired into the university system, where she has also been director of strategy, director of planning, director of academic planning, and eventually registrar before vice chancellor. You can see the rise, the mutation and the gestation. So which means that, of course, substantial level of experiences have been cultivated over these years, which will be brought to bear by the grace of God in the administration of the university. And of course, all these, of course, is also nested in the vision and the identification ability of the owner, who just feels that it has to be, excellence all the way. And of course, nothing short of that will work for the system that he has put in place.
One of the factors that stood out on the day that your appointments, as well as the others, were announced just a matter of days ago, was that the leadership of the institution makes deliberate efforts to align appointments with the ultimate vision of the school. Right. Having said that, Base University has raised the bar in terms of innovation in education. How do you intend to contribute to that? By way of sustaining that culture?
Oh no, there are a couple of things that Professor Shuara is leading us to start imagining. And that's why a couple of people have said, okay, a professor as registrar, this is a strategic appointment. When you are head of department, you are in administration. When you are a dean, you are in administration. And of course, registrarship is also administrative. But as a professor being there simply means the integration of governance. Governance with administration, and beyond that, the integration of an understanding of knowledge production and generation, in relation to the administrative framework of the university. And of course, when you have these coalescing, what you expect by the grace of God is stability and sustainability. Quite a number of things are in the offing. The things that have been laid before, of course, will be strengthened, and of course there will be new innovations, that the Vice Chancellor is leading us to imagine, and we are there to provide the necessary support, with the enablement of the ownership, and of course with the grace of God being on our side too.
We understand that there's been this increasing role of digital communication across the globe. Of course, the world is not a global village, as they say. But the concern is how exactly is technology helping to reshape higher education and higher learning overall on a global scale?
You cannot discount the place of technology in the times that we are in, because it's upon us, and the pace is very very frenetic, okay, even frenzied, okay, and of course, I always say that if your technology is more than 6 months old, it's outdated, you know, because new innovations are coming up. So the onus is on you, us, the users, to be adaptive, you know, to be adaptive. And of course, Business University is funded on the basis of this paradigm, recognizing the importance of technology. We've been led recently by the owner to reframe you know, departments or faculties that are central to this change in the way that their emphasis on technology and innovation, you know, will be clearer, right? Like the computing faculty, for instance, is also going to be integrated with information technology as well. You know, and of course, there are other faculties, other innovations coming up, you know. Remember, you need to just visit the place and see our technological infrastructure, how deep-seated, how expansive, how billions of naira, even dollars have been invested in this drive, you know. It's a postmodern university by all means. Even our learning patterns is quite consistent. Changes have been happening in the classrooms, you know. The CCTV network is complete, you know. Practically all sections of the university is covered. And of course, students are also encouraged, you know, to leverage this technology for interaction with their supervisors, their lecturers, you know, and their mentors, as the case could be. So it's a route that we're traveling, and we cannot detract from that route, and not just because of the initial vision of ownership, but from the dictates of the times that we are in, that is completely nested in increasing changes in technologies of communication, technologies of learning, and technologies of doing things as a whole.
Let me try to bundle two questions into one. I'm sure you are aware, Prof, that in the last couple of years, there have been calls for TED Fund, the Tertiary Education Fund, to extend its intervention to private universities. At the risk of making you be a judge in your own cause, is it realistic to make that call? That's the first. The second is, we're not talking PPP, even within the higher education system. What more should we do by way of trying to sustain whatever growth or development was seen in our tertiary education space?
Well, it's what TED Fund is doing is all right, you know, but I think at some point in the future they might have to review this policy about supporting only public institutions. You know, what do you do? Would
that not alter the mandates of the agency?
I'll build an argument towards that.
Right.
Now, what do you do, you know, with the banking sector? Do we not have government supporting them, creating the right environment? You know, sometimes
even lifelines.
Yeah, sometimes indirectly intervening to save them from collapsing. Realizing the importance of the financial, the role of banking sector in the financial sector, in the financial industry, and how it's critical to the stabilization and sustenance of the economy. The banking sector is largely in the hands of the private sector. And of course, there are other sectors too. Even the petroleum sector, government has interventions, you know, through joint venture partnership and all of that, you know. And because of how government does this, because that sector is very critical as a financial mainstay of the country. And of course, when you're coming to educational sector too, we have more private universities now than public universities. And even in ranking, private universities are doing better than public universities. Yes, I do not have to be afraid of saying this, even in some of these, as controversial as they might be. You know, there have been several rankings that places many private universities above public universities. And of course, even from our own exposure, you know, we see the facilities in some of these public universities. I can, without being immodest, you know, I can likely say many cannot compare with what we have in Base University, for instance, or in Afebabalola, or in Covenant University. This is a fact, you know. And how do these private organizations get funded? Apart from institutional fundings, churches, maybe personal prosperity of ownership, the other thing is bank facility. And you see where the interest rate is, you know. This can be killing, you know, this can be actually disillusioning. So you need a steel heart to power on. And that's why if government comes into support, it simply means that government is supporting the growth of the tertiary education sector, rather than government seeing it as if they are supporting the prosperity of private entrepreneurs in education. That's how I see it. And of course, I've drawn the corollary between the educational sector and other sectors of the national economy. And finally, if you're asking me to answer this kind of question, I'm not being a judge in my own case. Remember that I've also been in the public space, hearing my modest opinion on so many issues. So it's practically, I beg your pardon, just a continuation of what I've been doing, not necessarily judging my own case. So I think government might need to do a rethink in the future.
Right.
If we want to make support, for different sectors of the economy, if we want to make support holistic, as the case could be.
Let's talk about, just before we take a break now, let's talk about some of the key principles that should guide effective governance and policy implementation in the university system.
How do you mean again?
Some of key principles that will help guide effective, academic governance, policy implementation.
These principles are very key, because education is a service and it's a soft one, and not necessarily the hard aspects of life that's concerned about physical productions. Education is ingraining ideas, ingraining notions, knowledge into individuals. That's why it's an intangible, but it's an effective intangible. And of course, when you're managing intangible, we are talking about values, you're talking about virtues.
Right.
And of course, in that kind of environment, you need high ethical standards. You need credibility, you need integrity. Right, built not just in the teachers but also in the one in those that are taught, and you cannot compromise this. And that's why in base, the owner from the beginning does not suffer fools gladly. He does not compromise standards, and of course indiscipline is not also condoned. And you also have a leadership, in Professor Jemila Ashwara, who is also a stickler for principles, and these people, have deep religious values that they subscribe to. So all these things will drive us, and will continue to drive us by the grace of God on the path of credibility, integrity, and subscription to high values. Because remember, this is right. The education is not just, you meeting the requirements in learning, but also in character. And what defines character? Character is your overarching values that you subscribe to, your conduct, your disposition, your demeanor, okay, how you relate with others in a community of people, the level of ethics that you subscribe to. All those things are embedded in the conception of the word character. And that is something that we subscribe to highly in base, which is why our disciplinary procedure is painstaking and rigorous. But we often wish that students or anyone else, even lecturers, will not fall into the net where questions will be asked on their conduct.
Okay, so much said very brilliantly. Let's take a quick break now, everyone. We'll return a few more questions to ask, including how we can, as it were, leverage even consultancy of some kind within this conversation we're having on the program this morning. All of that and more coming shortly. Do stay with us. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. Prof, I need to ask you, what are some of the insights from media and consultancy that can be applied to improve educational management and administration in Nigeria?
Yeah, my background is actually media.
Even though many people may not know that.
From journalism, to the academia, and of course the bridge was created through the British Achievement Scholarship in England, and of course Masters and PhD. Media is reflective. Media is integrative. Media is informational, communicational, and in modern times largely conversational. In that process, it creates a ground, for the exemplification of the things that you have imbibed from the educational process.
Right.
Education, remember, I said earlier, it's not an end in itself, but a means to an end. So how do we know the productivity of education, if not through the media? How do we learn about the efficiency of the educational sector, if not through the media? So media is a platform, for the showcasing, of outcome or outputs of the educational sector. And of course, it provides room for feedback. And of course, it's from feedback you can do reviews and work towards improvement. So there's a natural connection between media and education, between communication and education. Because if you look at it fundamentally itself, there can be no education without media.
Right.
Neither can there be media without education. Because how do we're talking about technologies of learning, technologies of teaching. All these are as a result of the transformation of information and communications technology, which by extension is media and communication related. So it's integral to it, and of course they are like the Siamese string that cannot be separated.
Let's talk about strategies that universities can adopt to enhance student engagement as well as learning experiences.
So, the students that we have these days, are also it's also a reflection of the times that we are in. Students are more inclined towards technology. They are more fast-paced. They are not like the students of old, that had to walk extra mile to get information. Now, information is in the palm of every student through the instrument of their telephone, right? So there's often a struggle between the patterns of old, and the manners of the new, manners of contemporariness. So instructors try to bridge that gap, and if you don't bridge that gap well, the student will be lost, and you too, you will not be delivering what you are out to deliver. Okay, but again, we must also commend the students of present times,
right.
Because most of them are able to learn faster than the days of old. Because it was much more laborious for us those days, because
you have to go to a physical library.
But now the library is on their phone, and of course they are also taking advantage of it. So if a lecturer, for instance, is not research oriented,
right.
is not learning oriented, is likely to be embarrassed by a student who is far ahead of him or her on account of the knowledge that he has around him. Right? Because they learn these things ahead of the lecturers most of the time. Sometimes not even through reading or engaging with their equipment, but from their travels and exposure. Okay? But again, we also try to guide against artificial, what do you call
AI?
it? No. Before we get to AI, superficial
learning, yeah. Right.
Yeah, superficial learning
without depth, without substance.
Right. So we guide against it, telling them that, look, you still need the library, you still need to consult books, where you get depth, where you get critical engagement with notions and our essences, So all these things are coming up in the matrix, in the new age we are in. And of course, we have put mechanisms in place in Bez University to make sure that we do not lose any of the pieces in the jigsaw.
Let's also look at, this is an era of globalization. How can universities, whether in Nigeria or anywhere across the world, also take advantage of international collaboration to continue to raise the bar on academic standards and excellence?
You can't actually depart from it, really, when it comes to partnership and collaboration, because learning is collaborative.
Right.
Everything that we do is actually about partnership, about collaboration. Even if you start from the ordinary platform of having visiting professors, adjunct professors coming to you, they come to spice your mix, with new notions, diverse notions, consistent with the ordinary understanding of the university. It's about universality,
right.
And this is not new. It started from ages ago, from the beginning of the first university in the world, in Bologna, Spain, onto Oxford and Cambridge, some of the oldest universities in the world, and of course onto Harvard. It's actually about a collaboration and partnership, and it's even increasing with the platformization of the world, through communications technology. So again, coming down to base, we're not joking with this. We have departments in charge of it. At least about 2 or 3 departments, if I can, and department and director is directly in charge of partnership and collaboration. And we've had it severally. We have had interventions, support from different organizations, and we'll keep having more. But at the same time, we want to be careful. We want partnerships, to be beneficial. We do not want partnership, that we're going to suspect for any reason, so we do our due diligence, welcoming partners, and of course anyone that we imagine will be productive, we'll get the right permission, we'll proceed with them.
We need to talk about young academics and journalists who are seeking to also contribute meaningfully to education and research. What would you have them know?
Oh, there are so many things. Yeah, it will lead us to AI now. Artificial intelligence is just there to feed us with information, but we have to be careful. Again, we come back to the question of superficial knowledge. You need knowledge to be deep-seated. It's only that one, that route that can give you confidence, give you knowledge, that is more ingrained, that will be longer lasting, and that you can apply appropriately to the town by the time you get out of the gown. Because if it is fast-paced, just like that, of course, debt will be absent. And it's a shifting process. It's a fluid process, and that's why I said knowledge has to be continuous. And you have to be adaptive and adaptive, realizing that new notions are emerging every day. Even as we speak, new theories are being built. Okay? And for you to participate in it, you must consult widely. And consulting widely is not just by going to different sites, but by reading widely, okay? Because people are thinking every day. We have limitations in our environment, so there might be impediments, but in other climes, people are also thinking, quickly. And of course, maybe from even more qualitative perspective. Through partnership, collaboration, opportunities are there for us to learn faster from this one, domesticate them, apply them to our own environment, and of course NUC is also very responsive in this regard through the transition from BMAS to CMAS, realizing that universities might want to also come up with their own ingenuity through the development of courses, that they need within their own environment. These things are adding up, and of course becoming rewarding in many circumstances. So it's a continuous process, but through this process there must be credibility and integrity and commitment, because there are temptation, to detract from the narrative of quality. And if you do not guide against this temptation, you might cave in, which is a disservice to the learning process.
Higher education has evolved very radically the last couple of decades, particularly at the turn of the 21st century. Let's talk about moments or trends that have significantly shaped the academic landscape.
Governments have come up over the years with different policies. I think one critical moment will be the evolution of the private universities. Before there we had private secondary schools. I think it was the Obasanjo administration that brought up, that liberalized the space, tertiary educational sector. And of course, we had pioneer private universities, if I remember correctly, Madonna University, Igbinedion University. See, they were the initial.
That argument is still on about which is first between both. But the Igbinedion University, Okada, would say our license bears 001, and as such, we are. De facto number one.
So we have quite a number on that. So that transformation is actually immense, and of course it has contributed a lot, because of the limited carrying capacities, carrying capacity of public universities against the background of our burgeoning population. From 100 million to 150 million, we're talking about the excess of 200 million. Even as we are sitting here, people are not still able to get admission into universities. I have people that couldn't get into public universities, and they are home because of our population. So there's an explosion going on, and there's nothing wrong with us having more universities, really, as long as NUC continue to keep rightful watch on these universities. Brazil, huge population, imagine the number of universities and higher institutions that they have. Indonesia, United States of America, apart from universities, they have colleges, okay? And all these are institutions for growing people, towards populating the human resource quotient, quota of a national economy, which is significant to, for the achievement of, for enhancing the well-being of the people. Yeah, we also know that it's not all about education. But even when we say it's not all about education, we understand the importance of having some basic knowledge of doing things, so that the ability to interact in a social system can be enhanced. And that comes through some level of education. But in our own climate, we cannot compromise with university education, because it's higher, and of course puts you at a pedestal, for the future.
Let's talk about fundamental changes that are needed in university administration to leave a lasting impact on education in this country.
I think the change that we need, will also be around the intangible, okay? Some level of commitment, some level of subscription to high values, leading by example, not compromising. Not having your hand shouldn't be caught in the cookie jar, and of course there are some other ailments and some other malfeasance that we often identify in the system, harassment of any sort, realizing again that the position that you are in is not for you to oppress people, not for you to take advantage of, but for you to prioritize the interests of others above yourself for the benefit of the overall system. And what legacy are you leaving when you find yourself in leadership position? See it as an opportunity to serve humanity from your own prism. Okay, if you lead by example, others will follow. Respect is usually earned, right?
Not demanded.
No. Sometimes don't corral it. I've cited the example of. Permit me to cite the example of my bosses, for instance. If you look at Dati Baba, Senator, look at his track record of achievement. He himself has a PhD from a first-class university in economics, and he thought he wants to make an impact in the educational sector. And he came about Base University and has been very consistent. Look at the Vice Chancellor, Jamila Shuara. Look at her track record from the College of Education system to federal management system, the springboard of national administration, and of course to the university system, getting to the top as well. Track record of consistency, focus, okay? And of course, I won't be talking about myself, but if you look at me too, God has been kind, And the best way you can actually work for the society, for the educational sector, is to show example. Let people see what you are preaching, from your conduct. And let people, even without you saying anything, let your conduct, be an eye-opener to how things should be. And you see that change will begin to emerge within the larger system. And that's the point we're making, and even in the political sphere, in the economic sphere. We need leadership reorientation, a greater level of commitment, so that others can follow. Not just from what you say, but what you do. Because if what you do contradicts what you say, you cannot really galvanize people towards the right, proper, ideal direction.
I thought we're done at this point, but I think I have a bonus question, which I'm sure many Nigerians watching right now will be interested in, Prof. The issue of the private universities and how most of them, depending on who is doing the assessments, are far from being affordable or within the reach of the everyday Nigerian.
Good.
I've read lecturers, I am a product of a public university, for example. I've read lecturers say, if you think education is too expensive, you try ignorance and all of that. But how do we strike a balance between affordability and quality of education?
It's a continuing conversation, really. But again, you have just said it, you have helped me to say education is not cheap, When I went to the UK many years ago, the British government spent about £20,000 on me for my masters. Imagine, 20,000. That's many years ago.
Yes.
You can imagine how much it cost
over time.
Over time, it will have been, to do 1 year payment now will be around 15 to 20,000 pounds. For but my own included tuition and welfare and everything, and they were paying me every month. But imagine what it is now. So it's not a cheap thing. Your service that they are putting, that they are rendering, and of course they are developing you in learning and character. And all this will add up to making you. But again, in our own system, government is subsidizing the public education. That's why public universities are not charging like private universities. Let them remove the subsidy. Subsidy comes through UBEC, through Tedford, through direct allocation. What are private universities getting? Nothing. So how would they get the funds? Even if you are the richest man in the world, you will feel it. You will feel it. And you say, man, this is demanding. So how would they subsidize, their investments? Where is the help going to come from? And I said it earlier, is that through institution, through the prosperity of the individual, or through bank loan, through facility? So I mean, it can be very demanding, no doubt. Sometimes you may even ask yourself, your question, why am I doing this? I imagine this is a question they'll be asking themselves all the time.
That's the proprietors.
The proprietors, yes. Why am I doing this? Because you are in battle every day. If you don't want to, I don't want to give you details of what some of them pay in salaries every month. And apart from salary, what about maintenance? What about research funding? What about community service? Payments are made for this every day. And what about power? You have to be there. It has to be there 24 hours. You can't imagine power that is epileptic in this country. What it costs. What about security? What about facilities that keep changing? Sometimes these are not even, in some departments, cost huge amount of money to provide facilities to meet AUC accreditation requirements. And of course, some of these things are denominated in the scarce hard currency. So it is not easy. But for public universities, if you can get allocation, you can get TEDFund support, UBEC support, of course, you'll be fine. But private universities don't get it. One way or the other, they have to make ends meet. Because if ends are not meeting, people will turn around again to complain that no, they are giving us this, but we're not. They say they are investing, but they are not getting this. So it's a world of continuous balancing. And at the end of the day, we just say, may God continue to help us all.
Well, as a big amen to that. But again, it's interesting when you have this kind of conversation, because there's also the insinuation in some quarters that parents send their children to private universities, not necessarily or not primarily because of quality or standard, but because of the guarantee that they will graduate in record time. How much of truth do we have?
Oh, that's very good. Thank you very much. You have just said it for us. What time do you have to waste? 3 years program, you finish in 3 years. And that's the standard abroad.
So quality comes behind
when you
graduation.
Look. Learning is continuous. I told you how frenetic things are changing, notions are changing. If you teach a theory today in 1 month and you shut down for 6 months, by the time you are coming back, that theory needs review, has probably been reviewed, and you are lost. And you think you have learned it, you don't know that you have missed something in the mix, right? But of course, if it is continuous, people learn better. They learn faster. Impartation is higher, But when it becomes discontinuous, it's problematic. But in our own case, we are ordered. Yes, we sympathize with our colleagues in the public sector, but we are not susceptible to the vagaries of
the public university system.
And I keep using the example, my own experience in the UK. I was privileged to do my PhD in Leeds, and within 3 years I finished. In fact, some of my colleagues who came, who didn't even want to spend the time I spent, finished in 2.5 years. So it's precision. Everything is going smoothly, and you are following it systematically. There's no reason why you should do a PhD in 7, 8 years, or get a first degree in 5, 6, 7 years. Spending 5, 6, 7 years doesn't mean you were reading for all those years.
Right.
It simply means that there were interruptions.
Systemic problems.
Yeah, systemic problems. But in base, we were consistent, following everything, no strikes, nothing. And we, of course, by the grace of God, with the appropriate leadership of the owner, and of course with the new vice chancellor, we try to be methodical, and follow due process, be diligent, not missing any link. Because if you miss one link, it will create a chain reaction, which we try to avoid. And we hope to continue in this direction. With God on our side.
Right, of course. That's a very wonderful way to put it so succinctly. This morning, we had the opportunity to be speaking with the newly appointed registrar of the Base University, Nigeria, who has been shedding light on the direction of the institution and how he would leverage his wealth of experience, both within and one that he had garnered outside of the academia, to drive administrative frontiers in this new role of being, for want of better words, the chief administrator of the institution. And he has also established how that this is an opportunity given by not just God, but also by the proprietor of the institution, distinguished Senator Dati Baba Ahmed, and then this institution under the leadership of a new VC, talking about Professor Shuara, who has also been very unequivocal about what the university must do to continue to sustain this level of innovation that it has established more than a decade ago. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, thank you for coming on the morning today.
Thank you very much.
This is what we're leaving the program for this Tuesday. On behalf of myself, Queen Agaba, my co-host, and the entire production team here at Global Television's World Headquarters in Abuja, we say thank you for watching. We will see you again.